My family got by with a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, but most of all, we made it because we had a government at our back that was there when we needed it. It was there with food stamps to make sure we never went hungry. It was there with worker training programs so my mom could get the skills she needed to get a job. It was there with student loans so my brothers and sisters and I could go to college, which we never would have been able to afford to do without that. It wasn't always easy, especially for my mom. She was going to school, working part-time, raising 7 kids, and taking care of my dad. But we got the help we needed from our country, and that made all the difference for our middle-class family. But you know something? That American value system that allowed my family to succeed is being challenged. The value system that puts middle-class families first, that provides support for the most vulnerable among us, that values the men and women who build our country and keep us safe, and that says no matter where you come from or how rich or poor your family is, you deserve an equal opportunity to succeed. Those are the values I stand for and fight for. But they are under attack right now on a number of fronts. 30 years ago, almost 1 in 4 American workers belonged to a union. Today, that number has plummeted to just 1 in 10. Over those 3 decades, the average income in America went up by around $11,000 in today's dollars. Sounds good until we see that every penny of that growth went to the top 10%, with the majority of it to the top 1%, while the wages of every other American worker actually declined over the last 30 years. And during that, quote, economic expansion from 2002 to 2007, 65% of the growth in America went to the top 1% alone, 65%. Meanwhile, Wall Street bankers spent that time inflating a housing bubble in America and creating new financial products to sell. And when that bubble burst, it wasn't Wall Street that suffered. It was Main Street and America's workers that bore the brunt of the recession that followed. We all saw friends and neighbors lose their jobs, families lose their homes, neighborhood stores that had been open for decades shut their doors, pension funds and retirement accounts getting wiped out. And then we saw Wall Street go right back to the bonus as usual mentality that got us into this mess. So the way it seems to me now, more than ever, is the time when we need to be standing up for the middle-class families who've been hurt the most. Workers and middle-class families are being threatened right here in the nation's capital. And nowhere do we see that more clearly than in the Republicans' extreme budget proposals. You know, I was so disappointed that the very Republicans who came into office talking about the economy have now proposed a budget that will destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs. It's going to devastate workers and small businesses, and it's going to really threaten our fragile economic recovery. I'm disappointed that at a time when middle-class families still need some support to get back on their feet after this Wall Street crisis, Republicans have proposed a highly politicized, slash-and-burn budget that will literally pull the rug out from many of our families and children. And I'm disappointed that while Democrats are working very hard to make responsible and practical budget cuts that will allow us to continue to out-innovate and out-educate and out-build our competitors, as you probably heard even, the original House bill slashed the fire grants that you just heard about and eliminated the SAFER grants the fire departments everywhere depend on. And thankfully, the Democrats were able to offer an amendment and put that back in. You know, look, we absolutely have to cut spending and bring down the deficit. Democrats and Republicans agree that. It's hard, but we have to do it. But we've got to do it responsibly, and we cannot allow it to happen on the backs of our middle-class families and our workers. Now, I talked to you a little bit about what's going on in our states and a little bit about what's happening here in Washington, D.C., and they may seem like separate issues, but they are deeply intertwined. They both represent an attack on middle-class families and workers. They both demonstrate a serious overreach by Republicans who are fiercely, I believe, out of step with the majority of Americans. And they both highlight the differences in priorities between those who fight for Main Street and those who stand up for Wall Street. And they both should be seen as a call to action for all people who care about those American values that I mentioned, who understand that workers are the heart and soul of our country, and who know that organized labor is one of the most powerful forces we have that stands up for those middle-class values and priorities. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. famously wrote that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Those are the words we all need to keep in mind. Injustice in Wisconsin is a threat to justice in my home state of Washington or New York or California or Minnesota or anywhere. And threats to the rights of workers in any state or in any budget are threats to middle-class families in every state and every budget. As firefighters, you all know a thing or two about sticking together, about helping others, about standing up for your community. I see that with my own brother and with all the firefighters I get to work with back in Washington State. So as you go out and talk to your lawmakers in the next few days, make sure they realize what is at stake here in D.C. and across the country, and make sure they know that firefighters are proud to stand with all workers and middle-class Americans to fight for what we know is right, for investments in our workers, in education, in infrastructure, for our veterans, in public safety, and for the middle-class values that make this country great. Because every family in America deserves to have the opportunities my family had all those years ago. And every worker deserves the right to bargain collectively for fair wages and safe working conditions. I am proud to stand with you to fight for that. I want you to know I will keep doing it, and it is great to have you at our sides taking that battle on. Thank you so very much.